Hi everyone, you're with Lucy from Artshed Angel, and I'd just like to show you today some exciting things that I've been making. So who doesn't love to have some presents that you can give? I've always loved wearable art, and I've always loved being able to make creations that you can give as gifts. So today what I'm going to be showing you is how to make some lovely resin gifts and pendants and things like that. So this one's a lovely one. This one's been done with distress ink pads. This one here we've been using Yupo paper, and I'll be showing you exactly how to do it. And I also have one here where we can use a beautiful photograph to create something that you can have as a keepsake. So all these findings that I'm using today are available from Mad on Colour. The link will be in the description. But before you go any further, make sure that you click the like button and make sure you comment and ask questions during it. So let's get started. So to show you how I make these lovely little decorations or bits of jewellery, I have collected a few of these together. Now you really need to go down to my description on my page and have a look at where they come from. They come from Mad on Colour in Australia, and she has a beautiful selection of findings that you can use to make your jewellery, and what a great way to make some Christmas presents. So I'm going to start with one that I'm going to use a photograph. So I have an old photograph that I have cut. So we're going to use this one first. Now this is just to show you how the resin works, because resin can be quite a lot of fun. So I'm going to put her in this little circle. I've just cut a bit of a template to make sure I have the right shape. And I'm just looking at thinking to myself, it needs to be just trimmed ever so slightly. So I'm just trimming it so it sits neatly in. So what I'm going to show you first is how to do one using just the resin with a photograph that you might have already. And this is a great way of doing, you know, some old photographs and things you have. Now if you put it in there and it gets stuck, that's a good thing, but if you need to get it out, just get a little craft knife and whoops. Don't do what I just did there and scratch it, but that's all right, I'll fix that up. Now, just to make it a little bit more interesting, I'm going to put some music paper across the corner. So for this, I'm just using a glue stick. And what I found is some tiny music, so it's quite little. And I'm going to put some glue stick on that. And I just want to put it there across, just to make it a little bit more interesting. So now I'm just going to turn it over and cut it out. Now, sometimes your ink that you use may react to your paper. I'm going to cut that a little bit round. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that you don't have it reacting. So I'm quite happy with that. And I'm just going to have a look at how that looks in there. And like I said, this one is just a very simple one to show you how the resin works. Now, again, gets stuck in there. It's a good thing if it gets stuck. Now what I'm going to do is grab a bit of packing tape. So I have a piece of packing tape. I'm going to put it face down like that, and I'm going to carefully put her down onto the packing tape. And then when I turn it over, I'm going to use my fingernail, try not to stick it to my piece of paper here, and you can see there that I've sealed her with that paper. Now this is quite a simple one, but it will be effective. And in the right kind of thing, this would be beautiful on an antique book as a little charm that you put on an antique book or something like that. So again, I'm cutting around like this, and you don't need to, but I'm going to pop a bit of glue on the back of it just to kind of seal it to the back. Make sure I can't see any of that blue. Then I'm going to place her in the circle and just make sure that it's all nicely, that I have her turned the way I want to have her, and I've got her all nicely in there. Now what I try to do is make sure there's not air underneath her. So we don't want the resin to go underneath. Now I have a light here. Mad on Colour also has these lights available, so you might want to have a look. And I'm turning my light on, ready. And I have what's called UV resin. So this is a light curing resin. So what I'm going to do, now you can actually cure it out in the sun as well, but it takes a little bit longer. But I'm going to put this resin, opening it the wrong way, don't shake it up because you don't want bubbles in it. And I'm just carefully pouring the resin in to the disc. Now you can do a second coat if you don't get enough, but I try to get as much as I can on that first coat, and I don't want any bubbles. You can use a lighter to get rid of the bubbles, or you can just prick them with something. So I'm just going to, there's a bubble there, so I'm just going to prick that bubble. Now it is good to have something like a palette knife. So I'm going to pick this up with the palette knife, and it is bowing a little bit, which is just what I want. There's a couple of bubbles coming up there, which I'm just going to prick. Like I said, you can use something heated. Now I'm just taking this now over and I'm putting it in the light. And I'm holding it for about 60 seconds. So I won't keep you waiting, but it's about 60 seconds it takes to get. So now I'm looking at it, I'm taking it out, and you can see how beautiful and glossy it is. Okay, look at that. Looks like she's behind glass, which is perfect. Now what I'm doing, I'm looking at it thinking to myself, I'd like it to be a little bit more bowed. So I'm going to get my resin, and I'm going to put a second coat on very carefully, not right up to the edges. I'm kind of letting it go to the edges. Now what this is creating for me, you do want to go to the edges, but you don't want to push it over the edge. And this time you have to be very careful picking it up. I can just see that I've missed the edge there. So what we've got now is like a convex circle. So I'm just going to put it back in the light, and you wait about 60 seconds, and you can see there how beautiful and glossy it is. I'm going to leave it in there for a little while I prepare another one. So you can leave it in there longer, but it only takes about 60 seconds. Now always make sure you put your lid back on your resin. Now the next one I'm going to do, I'm going to use some alcohol inks. Now the reason I want to use alcohol inks is because we can get some beautiful bright colors. So I'm going to use some alcohol inks. I've just put some paper down so I don't make too much mess. And I'm just going to put a drop of blue down. So this one's going to be quite abstract. And I've got a glitter purple, and I'm putting purple down. And just going to use my palette knife because these are only small amounts of ink, so I don't want to be blowing it around too much with a blower. So you can see here I'm just melding the colors a little bit, and you can get real stone looking colors doing it that way. I'm just letting that sit for a moment. So I'll come back in a second when this is dried. Okay, so while that was happening, I finished my girl, and look what a lovely pendant that is. You can imagine that as something really lovely to put on it could be a necklace that you wear, especially if it was a photo of somebody you loved. So you can do new photographs as well, and using that technique to put the tape over it just stops it from ruining the photos. So there we have just a really simple one. I just wanted to show you how the process works. So this one's going to be a little bit more involved, but what I've created here is I've used the Yupo paper, and I've used the beautiful Couture Creations Glitter Accents inks. And then what I'm going to do is I'm using a pen, and what I want to do is kind of create a bit of something interesting, like a vine on here. So this is something you can draw, or if you've got a lovely stamp, you can stamp it. Stamping is really lovely on this, but I'm just doing like a filigree, interesting, and it really starts to look a little bit like stone. I'm just using my black ink for that to do my little design. Then I'm going to use my gold. I'm just going to put a little bit of the gold. I can get it open. Just a tiny bit of the gold, a drop of it there. All my brushes are a little bit dog-eared, so I'm just using the gold to put some gold leaves on, because they will really pop with the resin over the top. Now if I poured resin straight over the top of this, I would end up with a huge mess. So we're going to do the same thing again, and we're going to use our tape and put our tape over the top. And I'm just going to put a little bit of gold just at the top here running down, and just spread it a little bit. So always dry your Yupo paper with a hairdryer. Don't use a heat tool. Okay, so again, I'm going to get my tape, and I'm going to put my tape over the top and make sure I don't get any bubbles or creases. You can see there it goes quite glossy already. It's really quite pretty. And then I'm going to take this out, make sure I haven't got any bubbles. We don't want bubbles. And then I'm going to put the tape on it again. Now the shape, this particular shape that Mad on Colour has, is just a terrific shape, especially for photographs. But you know, you can make little bits of artwork, and I mean, who wouldn't want to wear something that's been handmade for them to fit? Now I'm pushing that down. I did put glue under this because Yupo paper doesn't really work well with glue. I'm just making sure that I have all the bubbles out, pushing it right down into the bottom. You can see that looks quite pretty already. It's very luminous. You can see all the glitter and prettiness of it, and the gold looks fantastic. There's a little bit of a bubble there, so I'm just going to push that bubble out with my brush. So it doesn't hurt to go over the tape. Make sure that you really get it flat, because we don't want any creases. Now this time, to get rid of my bubbles, I'm going to use a lighter. Now don't use a heat tool to do this. I'm using a lighter. So I'm going to do my first coat of resin, and putting the resin in. This one's a little bit deeper, so you can fill quite a lot, but obviously I'm not going to overfill the first one. You can do it in one go, but I don't know, I find that I have better luck personally. Now I am going to use a lighter this time, and just run the lighter over the top to get rid of any air bubbles. Then I'm going to take it with my spatula. Here's my bigger one. Oop. Now you do need to make sure it's flat, and I'm putting it in there, and that UV light cures the resin. So I'll just give it a minute. I'll move this out of the way. And that will cure the resin. And it only takes 60 seconds. It's so fast you won't believe it. Okay. Now, how lovely is that? Quite beautiful. The colors are quite stunning. Now Couture Creations also sells a resin which is a slower curing one, but I always seem to be in a bit of a hurry, so I'm using the UV resin. Now again, I'm filling this as much as I can. Now it is really important that you don't overfill it and it runs down the sides, and this time it's really important that I very carefully put it in here, and I'll just hold it on there for a second so that once it needs to be really, really flat. So whatever you're doing, you need to make sure it's very, very flat while you cure it. Straighten it up in there. And that's got a nice little bow on it now. Look how lovely this has turned out. So we've got a beautiful pendant with alcohol inks that you could wear. So you could make things in the colours to go with outfits, and it's really quite pretty. I'm going to do the square one. So this one here, because it's so big, we're going to do something a little bit more fun. Although it's all fun, isn't it, really? Can you imagine these as Christmas presents? I think the birds would make the most spectacular Christmas decorations. Now I'm going to use my stamp set for these. So I'm going to use these are my texture stamps, and they are really, really good for doing backgrounds. So I'm going to use my texture stamps, and I think I'm going to do it in pinks and pretty, pretty colours. Hang on, just get the right colours. Okay, so I'm going to take my colouring stamp, and this one here is great for colouring a surface. So what I want to do is take this light pink. Now I've already cut this piece of cardboard to fit, and I'm just going to use this pink to colour it. It's such a small piece of cardboard. So this stamp is meant for colouring areas. You can see it works quite beautifully. So I've got a bit of pink on that. That was Kitsch Flamenco. And I'm going to wipe it clean. Then I'm going to use peacock feathers and just put a bit of that on there too, because I want this one to be kind of bright and pretty and a little bit unusual. Okay, now I'm going to change my stamp to this curly one. I love the curly one. So I'm just going to change it to that one, and I'm going to use picked raspberry and just do some background. You can see that that's quite a nice little background, and I think it would be really lovely to have just a tiny bit of blue in it. So I'm going to clean this stamp and I'm just going to add a little bit of blueprint sketch to it. So, okay, and this one. So there I have a simple background for my necklace, and you can see with the silver that looks really quite pretty. And this time I'm going to think about what I'm going to draw. So I really want to do a tree of life on this one. So I'm going to do a swirly tree, because everyone likes a tree of life, and this is just a tree of life that is curls. I actually have a stamp in my range that's curly, and I'm going to use my finer pen and do my trunk, and I always leave a heart right there on the trunk, and then I'm going to go with branches. So if you like to draw, this is a definite way that you could create lovely gifts for people. And Moret from Mad on Colour has so many beautiful findings. I was very excited when I actually saw the findings for the first time, because there's just so much to choose from. And think of Christmas presents. The other thing about these findings is that they're all very, very affordable. And because they're quite small, they don't incur a huge cost for your postage. So please have a look in the description and head over and get some of these lovely findings. Now you can see here I'm just doing this tree very rough. I probably should have sketched it out first, but I kind of like random things, and I like things, you know, with things like this, I like them to look like somebody created them, rather than, you know, do we always want it to look like it was created by a machine or a computer? You know, I like the roots to be really in the ground. So my stamps are always also available on my website, which is Art Shed Angel. All the links will be down in the description. So please comment, ask any questions in the video, and make sure you subscribe. Okay, so I think I have what I want on here now. I'm also going to take now a little bit of a darker purple. Hang on, I'm just looking for my purple, which appears to have disappeared. I'm going to take my purple and I'm just going to rub the edges with some purple. Now these are the distress inks. Okay, we're ready. This is always the exciting bit. You get to this stage and you go, oh, now I get to put the tape on. And just want to this time make sure I don't get any bubbles. So because this is a bigger picture, I'm kind of pushing it down. You can use contact as well, contact adhesive. If you've got a Cricut cutter, you can actually use your Cricut application film or clear film. You can see there I've got that nicely on there. Gonna cut this. And again, I'm just going to make sure with my brush that it's all firmly stuck down and that I don't have any tape coming off. My ink pad was still a bit wet, so it's not sticking as well as it should, but it's sticking fine. So then I am going to this time put some glue on the back. It's just to make it a bit gummy. And push that into there. Why I like using the UV resin with this is it has no time to seep into the paper, so it's kind of a good thing. Now what I'm going to do this time is going to be a little bit different. So I'm going to make sure that that's covering it down there. I'm going to put resin in, so I'm going to put a whole heap of resin in, but not too deep. So putting my resin in, but I'm definitely not filling it up. Putting my lighter over the top so I don't have any bubbles. It does really move it around, okay, and gets rid of bubbles. If you see a bubble, it also doesn't hurt to just stick your knife in there. Okay, so this one I'm now going to put into the light box very gently. So we really don't want to have it at an angle or anything like that. And you can see how pretty that is. I do love that one. That one's definitely a wearable one, that one. Okay, let's have a little look. Okay, so when I pull it out, you can see it's quite pretty. Such a little own piece of artwork. Now this is quite a large one, but it'd make a great necklace, or you could put it on the front of a book. I think this one's going to go on front of one of my handmade journals. And you can see all the stamping in the background. I mean, I've done these quite quickly, so you can really go to town with doing it. But what I'm going to do now is get some. Okay, one of my very favorite alcohol inks is the Couture Creation Incandescent, which is a clear one. So when I put it down on something, it's clear, and I'm just going to put that in a few little dobs here and there around the outside of the tree. I don't want to cover the tree, but I want a bit of glitter. So you can see there's a little bit of glitter. And what I'm going to do is fully dry that. So just making sure that it's not stuck right on the edge. I've just put that around, and I've got a nice little glitter look. It's quite hot at the moment, so I'm not going to do anything till it cools down a little bit and it's completely dry. So now I'm going to use my resin, and I'm going to make sure I fill it right up and I get a nice dome. Okay, not too much of a dome, and you'll see it kind of looks like opal because we've got those lovely bits of glitter in there. Now I'm going to be very careful to move this into here and let it set, and it's going to look quite spectacular. It's really, really lovely to use glitter, and you can see here through this one here, the glitter really looks beautiful, and the alcohol inks, the way they've traveled and left little streaks and stuff like that, makes it look like a kind of glass, stained glass stone effect. And even if you use photographs, you end up with lovely little things. So the resin it's fairly inexpensive for the amount you use. It's quite a lovely thing to do. Beautiful Christmas decorations and all sorts of things like that. So I'll just wait a second and get this out. So I have finished my little decorations or creations. For this one I've used my new stamp set, which is the texture stamps. Available on my website, and you can see here with the distress inks, you could use any kind of inks, by the way, any kind of inks you like. You could even paint whole scenes with acrylic ink. So I have that one there, which is really, really lovely. The last thing I do is take them out in the sun and leave them in the sun to really harden, let the UV from the sun set them. You can see this one here is really, really lovely. It almost looks like stained glass, and that one was done with the Yupo paper and alcohol inks, and they're the Couture Creations alcohol inks. And this one here was just done with a photograph. But if you have a look on the website, there is a myriad of beautiful shapes and things that you can do lots and lots of things with. So also the UV light is available. So if there's something you can't find, please make sure you send a message through the website, and also ask any questions here, because I'd love to help you. I'm going to play with these, and within the next few days I'm going to put some more things up on the website of ideas that you can do with them. So I hope you enjoyed this. I really do like making things that's wearable art. Please head over to Mad on Colour and have a look, because it's lots and lots of fun. You're with Lucy. Thank you so much for being with me here today. Bye.